الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. We'll continue بإذن As you see in chapter 3, the types of Tawheed is working. We don't need this one. Do we need it? You can hear well?
It's not working, sir.
Huh?
This is not working. Maybe it's good for the recording.
Huh? Yeah, you can pause it. Start. The types of the Tawheed, as you see in the chapter 3 here, and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, which is the oneness of the Lordship, and Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the oneness of the deity, and then we have Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat, the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His attributes. We saw both of the first one, and we touched some of the chapter number 4, the role of faith in time of difficulties, but we want to go, touch and go deep into this chapter to see the role of the creed, the role of the faith in the life of a believer. Because one of the objectives of the class, it's not to learn the creed and Islamic creed as information, but to learn it as a way of practice. And that's how someone can understand his faith and understand the creed. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introduced to us the faith to be faith of action, to be dynamic in life, to be the center of the action and the engine of the action. And as we said in the beginning, the faith and the aqidah, it what really have the impact, or let's say the engine of the center of emotion, of thinking and action. And when he have them, the three together, then he will be acting in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see in the number 2 of chapter 4, said the lifestyle of being Rabbani. Rabbani, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قال بي كونوا رباني. Be Rabbani. And Rabbani is the one comes from Rabb. And the Rabbani to be like the one who is very, his way in life is according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who according to Allah become Rabbani is like he has like that characteristic to be merciful, to be just, pious, righteous. That is the Rabbani. That is the Rabbani. And the Rabbani is merciful, but in the same time he is strong in situation. He's not like the merciful and weak. No, the Rabbani has that full balance of pride and dignity, honor, strength, power, mercy, generosity. That's all the Rabbani, and all of it into the characteristic of the Islamic faith. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, as we mentioned last time, is the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to believe that God is the creator, He is the provider, and we mentioned some of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only one who created the heaven and the earth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had the absolute knowledge that we went through some ayat that we want to the explanation to see, for us the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being the God of the whole creation and the God of the universe. We said in a small conclusion or deduction that the oneness of the Lordship is in fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favor on His creation. How to look at it is Allah has favor on the creation. That's why the majority of the creation, they believe in God as being the provider and the creator. The oneness of the uluhiyyah, the deity, that's who, this type of oneness, we said, it really determines who is the believer from the non-believer. Because if you accept God as being the creator, it's an obvious step that you'll accept him as being your deity. If he's the one who provided for you while you are in the womb of your mother, and he will still provide for you when you came to this world, why you mistrust him in following his path when he telling you, my path will guarantee for you your happiness? So it's like a mistrust. Someone, he wants to count on himself. As he cannot detect the future, and this future which is unknown becomes, the biggest fear that he will be dealing with. The lack of belief make him to take in his own hand the battle of the unknown future. If he implement the oneness of deity, that he trusts in the one that he created him and provided him, he will guarantee for him the future. And this is what we're going to see, inshallah, in the different level when trying, inshallah, studying the divine will and predestination. Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat. Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat is another type of oneness who will complete both of the other oneness. Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat is the exclusive attribute to Allah alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyone who claim to share one of these attributes, it is kufr, it is denial of the faith, it is rejection of the faith. Allah is the only creator, the only God, and He is the only one worthy of worship, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who has the names, the beautiful names, the attributes are the names of perfection. The very complete and beautiful name belongs to Allah alone. No one can share with Him these names because He's the only one who can have them. Any one of the creation, he's by nature, he's going to perish. And if he's going to perish, everything in this nature make everything that he has is incomplete, imperfect. Seeing, this is a natural thing. We have a very limited distance in our vision, even those who are like the sharpest vision that they have. Then many things like, for example, when we talk about the mirage into the desert, that's the restriction in our vision, the restriction in our hearing, the restriction in our feeling, all of that, the restriction in our life as an age, the restriction in all the fields around us, the need, the dependence that we have to food, all of that makes someone to be very limited and imperfect. If someone will claim for any of the creation an element or characteristic of perfection, it will be conflicting with his nature and also will be like sharing the one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with characteristics that only can have them, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had the oneness of these names. That's why we say oneness of the al-asma' wa sifat, oneness of names of Allah and His attributes. Now, when dealing with these names, we need to have rules, etiquette, how to deal with these names. Dealing with these names is also the way how to deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how can we know the names of Allah, the attributes of Allah? The only one source that we have is the revelation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala words, and what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we need to respect into dealing with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala some element. This element, first, it is forbidden to make any distortion in any name. And we'll explain, inshallah, we'll give some examples. If we say the first thing before talking about distortion is to exalt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from any comparison to His creation. That's the first thing. تنزيه تعالى عن مشابهة صفات الحوادث. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no question that He can or any of His creation can be compared to Him, or like there's resemblance between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. So the first rule, there is no comparison with His creation. When we say, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the all-seeing, the all-hearing, we cannot compare the seeing, like if a human being being gifted with the ears as a way to hear, we cannot, if we see, listen, hearing, so we'll have in our mind an image of ear. The image of the ear is for the human being as that the tool to listen, to hear. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all hearing, it will be the very limited way in the human intellect to only restrict the hearing as the ear. So if that's the problem. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say the hand of Allah, the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a hand that fit His greatness and majesty in a way that we do not know. But it's not because His name hand that we have the picture of a hand of human being. More, everything has a hand. Even a bag, it has a hand. The animal has a hand. So which hand are you going to talk about? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be compared or have any resemblance to His creation. And this is, for example, one of the biggest deviation of the people of the book, when they, inspiring from the Greek mythology about the gods have their, children and everything, to portray for God, like to portray God as has a body, and this body looks like a human being. And if a body looks like a human being, then why not to have a kid? But in the Islamic Aqidah, which is in the truth, God cannot resemble to any of His creation. So how can His kid can be like a human being? It's impossible. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, if Allah was going to take a child, He will be totally different creation of that we can read it. We can read it in the Quran here. In Surah Al-Zumar. Read ayah number 4. لو أراد الله أن يتخذ ولدا لاصطفى مما يخلق ما يشاء. If Allah desired to take a son to Himself, He will surely choose those He pleases from what He has created. I mean, we know the angels, the way they look, they are, their appearance is greater than the appearance of human beings. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have to take a son, He would, as He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَاصْطَفَى مِمَّا يَخْلُقُ مَا Subhanah, glory be to Him. He's Allah, the one, Al-Wahid Al-Qahar, subdued. He doesn't need a son, because having a kid or children, that's a state of already of imperfection. Why? Because is being dependent, having a need. And when someone expresses a need, that in itself is imperfect. And being imperfect doesn't mean being bad. It's a nature. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nature, cannot have a need. Because if He has a need, then He will stop to be God. You know? So, when He said the first thing, there is no comparison, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be compared to any of His creation. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say He had a hand or an eye, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that fit His greatness and majesty. Know how it does look, because we cannot comprehend, and our intellect, we do not know, and no one will know. But we cannot resemble Him, because resemblance leads to ilhad, leads to denial of and rejection of the faith. Now, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be compared to any of His creation, but in the same time, we believe everything Allah said about Himself. Therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say He has a hand, we will not do a distortion of the hand or interpretation. So the first one, resemblance, is fully forbidden. Now, if I do not compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to His creation, I should not fall into the other problem, which is distortion or interpretation. We'll explain that. So distortion and interpretation. For example, distortion of the attribute of the hand, which lead them to an interpretation. So the distortion and the interpretation. Distortion is to deny the fact that Allah has a hand. That's a distortion. Say, Allah said He has a hand. No, He said God cannot have a hand. Why are they saying this? Because in his mind already the comparison, he could not get rid of the resemblance. So when he restricts the attribute of the hand only to what human being has, so I said God cannot have a hand. I said, but you restricted the hand to the human being. The hand we're talking about that fit His majesty, it's not a physical hand. So some scholars with a good faith and good intention, they said the hand is not really hand, is a metaphor. And here they fell into the interpretation. They said the hand, when you say the hand, is like more blessing of God. So I said, no, it's wrong. You cannot make distortion to say it doesn't have a hand. And you cannot make interpretation. Why the interpretation is wrong? Because you are restricting an absolute attribute of God to one particular meaning that you chose. Because the hand can be barakah, can be rahmah, can be power, sovereignty, strength, help. It has a lot, it's absolute.
I got a question though. Like if someone asks you to describe that, I mean, you have to say something. So would you just say that His hand is how He works? Or like what would be an example of something that you could say?
Well, this is what we say. We say God has a hand that fits, befit His majesty and glory and greatness. So we don't have a description for that. But the hand we'll go to the ayah, for example, and in how it's mentioned in the Quran, and we extract the global meaning from the verse itself. For example, the hand mentioned, I'll give you, for example, in ayah, in Surah Muhammad. Just to read it. In Surah Al-Fatih. Surely those who swear, like, apply their fealty to you, do not less than apply their fealty to Allah, or swear allegiance to you, do but swear allegiance to Allah. The hand of Allah is above their hands. Now here we have a meaning, what's here? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the believer giving their oath and allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, when they give it to you, the hand of Allah is over their hands. So here, we cannot say the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to bring them unity and blessing and to give them like strength, which we understand from that, but we cannot limit it. We cannot limit the hand to that. So I cannot bring this as an evidence of the interpretation of the hand. He said, one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hand, to have the hand, his hand over the hand of the believer when they are together. So who hold their unity, who hold their strength is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they come together, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, look what he said, therefore whoever breaks his faith, he breaks it only to the injury of his own soul, and whoever fulfills what he has oath with Allah, he will grant him a mighty reward. So some of the attributes, someone should not get into the details. Why? Because they do not have explanation. They do not have explanation because in a way that we need to have explanation to increase our faith. No, that's the way how they need to be comprehended. Because no one knows how Allah looks like. It's above our, and beyond our intellect, and beyond our nature even to comprehend the greatness of Allah. And it is actually from the real secret of the strength of the faith. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only the people they see Him are in paradise. And seeing Allah is the greatest reward in paradise. But yet, in paradise, someone will not comprehend the true reality of God. وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا. As I explained one time, like Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he explained it. It's like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, you will see your Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will not have doubt in seeing Him, like you seeing the full moon in the night of the 14th. But you will not know the reality of Allah, because it's beyond any creation. He's the creator. But you see the beauty of the light of Allah that exceed all the bliss you will get in paradise. That's why when someone loves something, and when he look at it, he feel delighted. So the eye, it's really what gives the delight of the heart. So someone can eat, can have everything, but looking at something give him such happiness when he really that thing is so beautiful. And the greatest reward in Jannah is to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But yet, as Ibn Abbas, I continue as what I was saying like when you see the sky, you cannot contain the sky. but you see it. That's how someone will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we say the hand, it comes like Imam Malik, when he's been asked about how God istawa, rises on the throne. He said, al-istiwa'u is known, ma'lum. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهِ wajib, to believe in it is an obligation because Allah said it in the Quran. وَالْكَيْفُ مَجْهُولٌ, the how is unknown. So there is limit that someone could not comprehend. Why? Because it's a given to not comprehend. It's like we say, I do not know. So that limit to do not know, someone will stop there. It's like, I would say, the right etiquette to deal with the mind. And to honor the mind when you help your mind to respect his boundaries. That's the great honor of the mind. Because it's beyond the intellect to know something unknown. As an example, I'll give you an example, always give this example. You will be like here to the next day in this time, trying to detect or to imagine what's behind this wall. No one will guess it right. Why? Because it's unknown behind this wall. So how can someone comprehend the nature of God? This wall here. We can write thesis to say what behind this wall. Right? We cannot. The only way to know is one of us will go out and he will be standing from the window there, this and this, and he can describe it because he see it. That's the unseen. The one who is describing for us is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Quran, the words of Allah. That is our bridge of the unseen. Beyond that, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to know. Yeah.
I will give you an example of the Alif Lam Mim in the Quran.
Yes.
That, we don't know the meaning of it.
Alif Lam Mim, it has a lot of interpretation in the according to the scholar of the tafsir. But yet, it's a very powerful word. Powerful word. It has a lot of meaning. Not literally meaning, we say Alif Lam Mim, for example, means like a paper. No. Alif Lam Mim is in itself miracle. Because, for example, when he came to someone, he say, ALM. Today I went to the masjid. Say, what ALM have to do in your world? But when someone has such eloquence, and he tell you ALM, and he start to speak very strong, that makes someone like, that's why some people of the book, they fell into decoding the letters to find out, many of the secrets. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want you to decode. One of his meaning to say Allah, those letters, A, L, M, A, B, C, D, those letters in Arabic, Alif, Ba, Ta, Jim, Ha, Kha, etc. The letter that you use to combine, to communicate between yourself, those letters Allah made out of them this Quran. So the Quran didn't create different letters to compile the Quran. It's the same letter, it's your language. And it has another meaning, which is when, for example, you want to draw the attention of someone. You say, are you listening to me? So he will say, okay, yes, I'm with you. So Alif Lam Mim, something that you cannot comprehend, which is, what Alif Lam Mim? It comes to you, the ayah after it, to wake up. That's the book. That it make you to be incapable to understand the first of it, so submit to Allah so you can understand the meaning of it. The same thing for the hand, the same thing for the eye. It is the way of the submission that someone, he honor his intellect. But he say he comes to a limit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created you. Why you want to know how his hand looks like? Oh, this is beyond your mind. But he said he has a hand. I will not say no, the hand cannot have it. I say if you deny the hand, it means that your mind, you try to run away from the resemblance and from comparison. So you have a problem here because God's hand, nothing have to do with the hand, the physical hand of people. Now, if you want to make interpretation to avoid people to think that thinking, you're making another problem because you restricted this absolute attribute to one particular meaning, and that's actually the Ash'ari, a group of a movement in the Islamic history, and they exist till now. Their thoughts into the Islamic creed, and thus they fell into this problem of interpretation, which is causing, kind of ilhad, deviation into the understanding the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So is it, as we said, we accept it as is, and we make nufawwidu ma'naha lillah. We have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows. Who knows better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The self of Allah is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he has a hand, we said he has a hand that fits his greatness and majesty, without comparison, without distortion, and without interpretation. Now, that's what it comes now when you say no resemblance, no distortion, and no interpretation. It comes to a fourth one is al-ithbat. Al-ithbat, what I was mentioning, is to confirm what Allah said about Himself. So people, when you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand, other people say, A'udhu billah, don't say this. I say, be careful. It's Allah who's saying He has a hand. But when you say I seek refuge with Allah and you deny it, why? Because in your mind the physical hand of a human being. I said in the beginning, no comparison, no resemblance, no distortion, no interpretation. But I have to confirm Allah said He has a hand. So someone, when he's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the greatest. So the hand of Allah is as great as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking. But I cannot have the image of a hand in my mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and I'll bring you this ayah, it's very important, in Surah Ash-Shura, Surah number 42. And ayah, as you see here, ayah number 11. فاطر السماوات والأرض, the originator of the heaven and the earth. He made mates for you from among yourselves, and makes of the cattle too, multiplying you thereby, nothing like the likeness of Him. So this is the full negation for anything to resemble to Allah, to be like Allah. In the other translation says, there's nothing whatever like unto Him. So this is the full negation. So in this part, we have the negation of the comparison, of resemblance. And the second part, look Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. But He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. And He is the one that hears and sees all things. So this is the confirmation. So I said, nothing resembles to Him. Nothing is like, as He's saying here, nothing whatever like unto Him. Nothing. But when I negate everything to be compared to Allah, I will not exclude the faculty that Allah gave us, for example, seeing. So I said, oh, so God doesn't resemble us. He's not like us. So He doesn't have a seeing. He said, no, look, and He is the all-seeing, the all-hearing, because His seeing is not like you see. He sees everything. No planet or layers of the earth will cover Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeing. As did the mountain will not cover the foundation or the base of the mountain. Allah sees everything. So He's seeing that fit His greatness and majesty. He's seeing is the all complete, the all perfect. Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeing? He's absolute. So the negation of resemblance and the confirmation of the attribute. And based on this, it's forbidden to make, we said, any distortion. We cannot say God doesn't have a hand. Why? Because we have a problem of comparison. Or make the interpretation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا. He knows whatever in front of them and whatever behind them, their future, their past, from where they created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, some of the dimension when you read the Quran, because when we say Allah knows everything, you'll ask, you know, He knows everything, you say yes. So when you try to make a count of what He knows, we are very limited in our knowledge to know what Allah knows. But sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give a glimpse. Look in Surah, for example, Surah Qaf. When the disbeliever said in Ayah 3, أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا ذَلِكَ رَجْعٌ بَعِيدٌ. What when we die and become dust, or we live again, that is a sort of return far from our understanding. That's impossible. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this is to give us a glimpse of the absolute knowledge of Allah. قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ. We know indeed what the earth diminishes of them. So imagine everybody in the grave, what the earth take from that body, Allah knows that part of dust into the side the earth belongs to which body. From all these million years or 1,000 years past. You take one dust, Allah knows from where it came, and if it's decayed from a body, He knows which body. Look, قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ. So it's like, are we going to return? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I know even that part of you that turn into dust, Allah knows it. قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ وَعِنْدَنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ. And with us is a writing that preserves. Or He has the other term, with us is a record guarding the full account. That's everything. So this is about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the attributes. No one can share the names of Allah because they are exclusive to Allah, because they are names absolute, complete, and perfect. That's why I call them Allah al-Asma'ullah al-Husna, the most beautiful name. And al-Husna is like the summit or the highest of the beauty, which is the most perfect possible. As He mentioned some of them in the end of Surah Al-Hashr that you know. If you want to read 22 and 23 and 24, هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. Allah is He that whom there is no other God, who knows all things, both secret and open. He most gracious, most merciful. And then we have Wallahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-malikul quddus salamul mu'minul muhayminul azizul jabbarul mutakabbir. Huh? The king, the holy, the giver of peace, the grantor of security, the guardian over all, the mighty, the supreme, the possessor of every greatness. Glory be to Allah from what they set up with him. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور. He's Allah, the creator, the maker, the fashioner. So what do you think, like the creator, the evolver, the bestower of forms? So once someone creates, they say, human beings were created. But look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah, He give you three things. Khaliq, Bari', Musawwir. And all of them has to do with the creation. He create, He make, and He fashion. So the image, the complexity of the nafs, so it's not only simple creation. That's lahul asma'ul husna. His are the most excellent names. To Him belong the most beautiful names. Allah subhanahu. So, when to deal with the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and attribute, we need to have no comparison, no framing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And comparison, resemblance, and framing as in the all one category. And frame Allah is like to embody, to put like, the embodiment of God in a body. That's kufr. Distortion, interpretation. But in the same time, we confirm the names that Allah mentioned about Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any question?
Sheikh, like those Muslim, you just mentioned a little while ago.
Asha'ira.
Where did they get? They didn't get from the book of the Quran or from the Prophet. But where did they get their?
Wallahi, the Asha'ira, they're not deviated sect. So that's the thing. Most of the scholars, big scholar we know, they have this tendency of Ash'ari. The Ash'ari, most of the Shafi'i school from Somalia are Ash'ari. That's why they have a lot of Sufism. So any Sufi, his Aqidah is Ash'ari. But not every Ash'ari is Sufi. And the Ash'ari, it's a level that doesn't really hurt the mass. It's intellectual level in a very scholarly, up level into their discussion into, the meaning of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you can say. But if someone bring it to the level of the mass and he try to, implement it as a behavior, that's when it becomes the problem. That's when it becomes the problem. But if he stays at that level, the good intention will not, have them to be, let's say, outside the circle of the faith of Islam. When they thinking, they say, we don't want people, especially when they lived among people of the book. For example, in the area of the Sham, in the area of Egypt. So they lived among the people of the book. The people of the book, the God is look like man. In the church, it's always they portray God, especially in the Catholic Church, how they portray God, on a chair and with Adam, this famous picture that they have,
Mm-hmm.
So having that and being like a common, culture among people around and those who came to Islam. So the scholars, by good intention, they want to give the interpretation of everything look like physical, to turn it into metaphor, to avoid people to think that way. So they have a good intention. Say, oh, don't say hand. The hand is for example, blessing. The eye is watching you, watching over you. But when it comes to the real aqidah, we say this is a problem, you cannot do that. Because by trying to avoid a deviation, you fell into another deviation. And the way we're studying it, how to keep it in the right balance of the way of the Prophet ﷺ, on the way of the true aqidah. On the way of the true aqidah. But for someone, for example, who prays and everything, and a normal person, believing in that, actually he doesn't believe in it. Not believe in it, but it doesn't occur to his mind, he's not mindful of it. When he's praying and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and invoking his beautiful names and everything, when you tell him, for example, are you Sunni, or are you, for example, following the Aqidah of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or you are following the Aqidah of Maturidiyya or Ash'ariyya, told you what? You will not even understand what you're talking about. So people, for example, for a long time, worshipping Allah, going to Hajj, very devoted people, and then told them, you are Ash'ari. He said, what are you talking about? I'm following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So the majority of the people, they do not know what type of aqidah they're following. And if they do not know, so they are already, insha'Allah, in aqidat Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Because aqidat Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, it had the pure one, which is a very balanced one. And then they have the deviation on the side who will not have them to get out of the Islamic faith. They are invited to correct themselves. But at the level of a scholar level, the naqd, the criticism is very sharp. Why? Because they try to correct them back. So when it comes at that level, you find them talking very harsh to each other. That harshness should not come to the normal people, should stay up there among the scholars. Well, any other questions?
I have a question. When you name your kids, when you say they're like Abdul Bari, and then as a nickname, you say Bari, is that right?
The names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes with Al, is the. So, for example, when we say Kareem, generous, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a Kareem, he's Al-Kareem, the generous. So we have the right to take that Al, al-Ta'rif, wa al-Istighraq lil-Jinsi. So when we say Al-Kareem, so the whole generosity and the highest degree of generosity is in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you say generous, becomes a name, is accepted. But this name cannot be. For example, Abdul Bari, Al-Bari'u, he's the maker, he's the evolver. Cannot be someone called Bari. And this Bari, it's used make, things or create paper, things like hand things, things that can be manufactured by the hand or something. But when you say Bara, the only Bara is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdul Kareem, we can call Kareem. Abdul Halim, we can call Halim. Abdul Razzaq, we cannot call Razzaq. The servant of the provider. We cannot call someone like nickname you provider. Maybe provider for a small scale, he get the he has the task in the household to bring the groceries, so he say the provider of the house. Things like that maybe. But there is name that they cannot be mentioned, so it depends on the name of the study. Other question?
Sheikh, the reference you made to the Surah for the ayat 10, the hand of Allah is above their hand. Just for my better understanding, could it be just as a metaphor to the helping hand rather than a physical hand, just like fathers, they tell their sons, well, okay, as a
I'll give you a hand.
I'll give you a hand, start your business or whatever. I'll give you a hand and do this.
No.
It's
No.
not that they are physically holding your hand all the time. They're just like
No.
trying to help you.
We know here, if you apply the rules that we've said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned hand here. So there's no comparison, right? No resemblance. So this cannot be like physical hand, like the hand of you. Well, we agree with that. Like, if I say the hand is help here I make an interpretation. I said, we will say, the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes here to help the believer, but not the hand is the metaphor of the help. Why? Because if the hand mentioned in another place can be blessing, can be power. So if I make interpretation to limit the interpretation of the hand to help, then I make distortion and wrong interpretation. Why? Because I limited the absolute, the infinite, to one meaning, and that's all. But when I say, for example, question of, when I said, if you read the ayah, we said the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the hand of the believer, Allah to help them. So I extract the meaning of the whole ayah, but I will not take from the ayah, from the verse, the hand, and I say equal help. And we say Allah has a hand the way He said it. Because it's absolute and infinite. I cannot restrict it to one particular meaning. Okay. So what you said is mustasir, is accepted, but not to restrict the hand to the help. That's the problem. We see there's help in it, but we cannot contain the attribute of the hand to only the help. That's why the interpretation is wrong here. Well,
Why can't the general Muslim know about the debate? Wouldn't it be like what the Christians do when they don't share all of their information with us?
Christian?
Yeah, they don't give every information to like their community members. They actually just give them some, and then the rest they discuss amongst themselves. Wouldn't be imitating them.
When we talk in this way, I didn't understand the question. So.
Why can't the normal Muslim community know about the debates that the scholars have among themselves?
Oh no, it's not. The debate is in a level of knowledge of science, if you can say, that the mass they will not understand. It's not like the books are. You can open any books and see them, but it's like more fell into kind of what we might say it a philosophical way, you know. But when it comes, you know, to the mass they don't even need it. They don't even be, you know, in need to know that. So it's like, for example, say there's an open discussion, you know, on certain chapter of math, and this chapter studied by, you know, at level of PhD. Who going to attend? Huh?
People with PhD?
Yeah, I mean, even normal people say, let's hang out, you know, they feel like they headache and say, let's leave, you know. you feel bored. He's open, but when I say at a level scholar, like it's at a high level of only people, student of knowledge who follow up with that to understand what they think. Yeah. So they're not contain it or keep it to themselves, no, they're not. And also, for example, when you come to someone, say, the barakah of Allah is with you. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the help of Allah is with you. Allah said in the Quran, the hand of Allah over their hand. So the person is not going to discuss it. But the scholar said, hold on, what did you say? He said, I said this. This is not right. You should not say, if someone has knowledge. He said, no, I say it because I don't want him to understand that the hand of Allah is a physical. He said, you're not the one who speaks on behalf of Allah. Allah said He has a hand. You cannot deny that He has a hand. But help him to understand in the right way. And then the discussion starts. You know, that's what I'm talking at the scholar level. Yeah.
Last week you told us to reflect on Surah Baqarah, verse 62. So,
Verse 62.
Can you touch on that, please?
Did you find the answer? But you remind me, but I remember that I gave you the question. Can you touch on that? I like it. Huh? Yeah. $62. There's no picture.
You turned off the TV.
I have it here, the mirror here. Yes, come on back. Dua. Shadinka.
Yeah.
Need the refreshment. Came back? 62. You're A. So we said last time, how can we answer those who are saying like, those who, the Jew and the Christian and the Sabian, whoever who believe in Allah and the day of judgment and He will do good, then they will have their reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's no fear for them, nor shall they grieve. Yes.
Can't you say that it applies to when the book was revealed to the children of Israel back in their time, not in our time?
Yes, it does. But how can we explain it today?
So with the coming of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it stopped. All the
Yeah,
previous-
where do you find this in the ayah? I know, that's what I told you. Said where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's very simple.
Can you say if you're a Christian and a Jew, as long as you believe in one God and you only worship one God, then you would find the right way and then God will accept you? Or if the message never reaches to you and you still believe in one God, then you will.
Yeah, if the message didn't get him, that's something else.
I got it.
But if he believe in God, without the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I believe only one God. But he doesn't believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not a believer.
Allahu A'lam, but I believe the three conditions is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day and to do good deeds.
Where's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
That's what the verse said.
The answer is very easy, I'll give you the answer, yes.
Can I take a shot? I just think it's, you know, these words that we call people of different areas, you know, like, there's a, you know, we have an idea, you know, Christian and, you know, and a Jew and a Muslim, I mean, those are those are words that people made up, you know, but God doesn't care about that. All he cares about is that you have corresponding action and you believe in him. And that's it. He doesn't care, you know, like you said on day one, you know, it doesn't matter if you're this or this or this. If you have corresponding action, you'll rise. If you don't, good luck.
But here, I mean, everyone needs to believe in the Prophet ﷺ. Yes. So, but it's not here in the ayah, because this ayah, what you said is right, and everyone is saying is right. But in this ayah, people are using it to say, for example, to the people of the book, you're fine. The way you are good. You said no. Yes.
We the like everyone is born as a Muslim. You know, for a Muslim, you gotta believe in all the prophets, Muslim, Jesus, and all the books that were sent to us, sent to them. So if the Jews and the what is it called? The Christians, they practice what their prophets has taught them, then it means they're Muslims. So there's no fear if they do what they asked to do.
If they do what I'd asked you to do in time of Isa, Jesus. So this is will apply for them. And I said Muhammad. Okay, the answer is easy.
Is it because?
I'm gonna say it's easy, the answer. It's easy in the ayah, But it is, when you read the ayah, you need to define what we read. The religion of Islam is for the whole humankind. When someone is Jew, doesn't mean that he cannot come to Islam because he's Jewish. Or a Christian, no, you're a Christian, it's like the door is blocked for you. No. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِينَ, all of you, as you said, whoever will believe in Allah at the day of judgment, and he will do right, the good deeds. Now the day of judgment and doing good deeds, the doing of the good deeds is the sincere expression of your belief in God. But the simple question, when we define things, what does it mean to believe in God?
Believe in all the arkan iman.
To believe in the pillars of the Iman. And to believe in the pillars of the Iman, the first one, you need to believe in the Prophet ﷺ. So the answer is there in Man Amana Billah. I told you it's simple. Man Amana Billah. So Iman here, believe in God, not believe in the existence of God. That's why I asked you the question. Believe in the types of the oneness that we studied. Believe in the oneness of God as the Lord, the oneness of Lordship, the oneness of the deity, and the oneness of attributes and names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the meaning of believing God. So we cannot go like fly over believing God and jump into paradise here that everyone is safe. No, say start with believing God first. We have to define it. Because everyone who use this ayah say you do not know your own religion. Because the way you're defining what the meaning of believing God, that's the problem here. Well, it's clear. Very simple. So when you rethink, we have to define it. You don't seem confused.
Yeah,
It's clear or not?
under man amana billahi, it comes all the belief.
So when you say I believe in God, you have to believe in the full pillars of Iman. All of them. Believe in Allah, in the angels, in the books, in all the prophets. So believing God is what we have in the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون. This is what means believing God. In what has been revealed to him from his Lord, as do the men of faith. Each one of them believe in Allah, His angels, His books, and His messengers. We make no distinction between one and another of His messengers. Add to it the day of judgment in the other ayah, because it's not mentioned here. So this is the meaning of believing God. Because, I'll give you another ayah to make it more specific, especially when we talk about the Prophet ﷺ in Surah An-Nisa. Look what Allah subhanahu. Read ayah 150. إن الذين يكفرون بالله ورسله, those who deny Allah and His Messenger. They're not denying Allah, but how they deny Allah when they deny one of His Messenger. So, oh God, I believe in you, but I don't believe in this messenger. No. The Jews, oh, believe in you, God, and believe in Moses, Jesus now. We don't believe he's a magician. That's what they say. The same for the Prophet ﷺ. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال, those who deny Allah and His Messenger, and those who wish to separate Allah from His messengers, saying we believe in some but reject others, and those who wish to take a course midway, they are in truth equally unbelievers. أولئك هم الكافرون حقا. Those are the true disbelievers. Allah sent all the prophets. You pick and choose? Doesn't work. If you choose the one you want, so you are disbelieving. It's one source, and you choose what you want. So you make in your way, as Allah قال, يريدون أن يتخذوا بين ذلك سبيل. This is the meaning of believing in God. And that's why we put to see the importance of the types of Tawheed. The names of attributes and the restriction and the principle that we mentioned are all understood, right? So when I say, for example, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hand of Allah, I need to add with no comparison, no distortion, no interpretation, a hand that feels His majesty and glory subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not have someone, like wander or like travel with his mind, having picture of hand. You help him at that moment. A hand that fits the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His greatness. This has helped us bring us to being, to the end of the chapter number 3. Effects of faith on the moral and behavior. This is the part, really, what is the fruit of believing. Because it's very important that the belief is implemented in the life. It's become the engine of your action. That's what you nourish your safety, your security, your peace of mind, is your belief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He described for us the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this perspective. That's why we took those ayat of the Quran to see, the word of the Quran when He gives us the principle of our life. One of the examples I will start to talk about, and we'll, inshallah, will continue next time. Take an example in Surah Al-Anbiya. The story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. We said we're going to take example from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us the story of Ibrahim in Surah Al-Anbiya. قال ولقد آتينا إبراهيم رشده من قبل وكنا به عالمين. Certainly we gave to Ibrahim his rushd, his maturity in conduct. As well we were or we acquainted with him, or he said, and we knew him fully well. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was this young man, strong, very smart, and he had this maturity to think, and this is being gifted to him by Allah. Look at his people worshipping idols. He said to his father and to his people, ما هذه التماثيل التي أنتم لها عاكفون. What are these images to which you are devoted? قالوا وجدنا آباءنا لها عابدين. It's the sickness and disease of imitation. We found our father, we are following the path of our father. He faced them, قال لقد كنتم أنتم وآباؤكم في ضلال مبين. Certainly have been both you and your father in a manifest error. قالوا أجئتنا بالحق أم أنت من اللاعبين. They said, have you brought us to the truth, or are you one of the triflers, or those who jest? And then he presented for them the true God subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال بل ربكم رب السماوات والأرض الذي فطرهن وأنا على ذلكم من الشاهدين. He said, your Lord is the Lord of the heaven and the earth, who brought them into existence, and I am of those who bear witness to this. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he wanted to show them a proof. What is the proof? The God worthy of worship, at least he can help himself. The list. If you ask him to help you, so no one can overcome God. No one can defeat God. If you have the tiniest doubt that God can be defeated, you never feel secure when you call him. You know. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he wanted to give them this lesson, just to ponder, to reflect. He went and he broke all their idols. قال, by Allah will certainly do something against your idol after you go away, turning back. Then he broke them into pieces, except the sheaf of them, that happily they may return to it. Okay, that they might turn to him. When they came back, they went, it seems they have, celebration, like a day of celebration, tradition. They go out of the city and they came back, they found all their gods broken into pieces. And he left the big one. When they come, imagine, someone's God is broken. It's like people now, when they worship the dollar. And they are so happy every time they look at the balance. But the hacker entered and he, took all that balance. Exactly like the feeling of around money. This is what they felt when they found their gods broken. Imagine someone, all his hope and those, image of the great ambition based on the balance that he has. Every time, he check, and he sees the stock market he has, he feel like, he has like 1,000 years to live. That an honest hacker take everything, with the system. That fear, sadness, and like he going to die. That feeling. Why? Because it's like someone stole all his life. That's how they used to feel. Like imagine someone has in this temple enter a God that he has a relation with. Give me, do this for me, he come and talk. He came back from this Eid that they had, he found the God broken. Oh, what's going on? The problem, if he's God, and he's broken something weird. The first thing, like the reaction of people, like, they want to avenge their gods. Now, avenge who? You're going to avenge stones? قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. They said, who has done this to our gods? More surely he's one of the unjust. So people that do, like, spies, intelligence groups, going around, they said, قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. We heard some kid, he's always talking about them, he's disputing why, his name Ibrahim. Say, bring him to the court. So they brought him, and they want to make him like example for the whole nation. He was the only believer, so they gather everyone. قالوا فأتوا به على أعين الناس. Bring him so everybody will look. قالوا أنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. Have you done this to our gods? It's like, this is the most, noxious and major big sin that you can do. Now Ibrahim alayhi salam, the one who had rushd and maturity, he shocked them the way he thinks. قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. He said, is there big who did it? Ask them. Broken pieces, God's helpless. To ask them, to tell them who did it, when you call them, you used to make dua for them every morning, and you make a supplication. They could not defend themselves, and even they cannot witness who did this for them. فرجعوا إلى أنفسهم. They find themselves like, very small mind. They went back and they talked. They themselves and said, surely yourself you are the unjust. I mean, people and leaders and, shuyukh, elders, and all of them gathered because of stones. And this young man, like he said, they came back and said, he's right. How this is went far for us to worship stones that didn't even speak. The same thing, I wanted to put the dollar to to bring the idea to the time that we live in. How someone can money do that for you? You kill your father, you kill your brother, all of that for the money, and then you bankrupt. The money didn't help you. It's the same example. Don't take like the gods, like the idol, something that is in the past. We have them today in different shapes, different image. Then subhanallah, ثم نكسوا على رؤوسهم. Then they were made to hang down their heads. Why? Because there's arrogance, there's hatred, there's greed, there's the diseases of the heart. How come this kid who doesn't have any power, who doesn't have anything, he comes to make his voice to prevail on us? No, we cannot have this. So their reaction is not to defend their gods, it's to defend their system. Big difference. So the gods, they were playing an image, an excuse in the whole system. They were in the center of the system. And they will stop here. I want you to think about this. They were an excuse. Is an image that they create to lie on themselves, to entertain others, to build this system to benefit the interest of the leaders. And then when we talk about the shirk, you remember we said it's about the system, is about not only one god or particular like stone you put, no. And we want to see, inshallah, the power of faith, the power of Iman in this ayat that is going to follow. The power. When Ibrahim facing the biggest trial, he's going to be thrown into the biggest fire ever lit. to refine one. Any question? So remind me when we start, because I have a good note. So we stopped at ayah 65.